Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Hollywood Remembers video. Today, we're honoring the American stars we've recently lost, along with other beloved figures who have touched our lives around the world. Before we dive in, if this video resonates with you, we'd truly appreciate a like. It helps us continue sharing these heartfelt tributes with the respect and care they deserve. Thank you for your support, and now let's begin.
Timothy Very was born on November 22, 1983, in Pensacola, Florida. From a young age, he found his rhythm within the walls of his church, playing faithfully alongside Andy Prince. Those early moments were more than practice. They were the quiet beginnings of a life devoted to music, service, and heartfelt expression. As the years unfolded, Timothy's steady hands and discerning ear helped shape performances that resonated far beyond the stage. Whether in intimate gatherings or larger venues, there was always a sincerity in his playing, a humility that reminded audiences that music is not merely heard, but deeply felt. Many remember the first time they witnessed his calm focus behind the drum kit, guiding each song with grace and unwavering dedication. His legacy is not measured solely in recordings or appearances, but in the lives he touched and the inspiration he offered to fellow musicians and listeners alike. He demonstrated that commitment, faith, and quiet perseverance can create harmonies that endure for generations. Today, we honor not only his talent, but his spirit. May we take a moment to reflect on the joy and comfort his music brought into our lives. If his work ever stirred your heart or accompanied a cherished memory, we invite you to share that story. In remembering him together, we ensure that his rhythm continues, steady, dignified, and everlasting.
Greg Biffle was born on December 23, 1969, in Vancouver, Washington, and became one of the most respected competitors in NASCAR. With determination and quiet confidence, he carved out a remarkable career defined by grit, sportsmanship, and unwavering dedication to his craft. Many fans will forever remember his triumphant championship runs in the Truck and Busch Series, moments that showcased not only his extraordinary talent behind the wheel, but also his perseverance and discipline. Watching him command the track with focus and composure was to witness a driver who understood both the science and the spirit of racing. Beyond the trophies and checkered flags, Greg's legacy lives in the inspiration he offered to aspiring drivers and the loyalty he showed to his team and supporters. He represented an era of racing built on hard work, respect, and heartfelt competition. His name will remain woven into the rich history of NASCAR, remembered with admiration by those who followed his journey. Today, we pause to honor his life and the excitement he brought to so many Sunday afternoons. If you recall a race that thrilled you, or a moment when he made you proud to be a fan, we invite you to share that memory. In doing so, we keep his spirit alive, steady, honorable, and forever racing in our hearts. Dana Eden was a distinguished Israeli television producer and co-creator of the acclaimed series Tehran. Born around 1973/1974, she devoted her life to storytelling that bridged cultures and illuminated complex human realities with intelligence and courage. Through Tehran, she offered audiences a gripping and thoughtful portrayal of identity, loyalty, and moral conflict. Many viewers recall the tension and emotional depth of the series' earliest episodes, moments that revealed her rare ability to combine suspense with profound humanity. Her work elevated Israeli television onto the global stage, earning admiration far beyond her homeland. Dana Eden's legacy rests not only in the success of a celebrated production, but in the doors she opened for meaningful international collaboration and bold creative voices. She believed in stories that challenged assumptions and fostered understanding, reminding us that art can connect even the most distant worlds. As we reflect on her life and contribution, we honor a woman whose vision enriched modern television and whose influence will endure in every story shaped by her example. If her work moved you, sparked conversation, or deepened your understanding of another culture, we invite you to share your memories. In remembering her together, we ensure her creative spirit continues to inspire with dignity and light.
There is a particular stillness that accompanies the mature years of an artist who has already traveled the long arc of public life. It is not the stillness of retreat, nor the quiet of absence. It is something steadier, more deliberate, like the pause between musical phrases when the air itself seems to listen. In the presence of Art Garfunkel, that stillness has become part of his language. Age has not reduced him, it has refined him. The brightness that once carried effortlessly across vast concert halls now rests in a different register, deeper and more reflective, yet unmistakably his. Time has given his face the gentle markings of experience, and with them has come a kind of gravity that cannot be rehearsed. For those who have followed his voice across decades, there is a recognition that goes beyond memory of melodies. It is the recognition of constancy. In a culture that often celebrates reinvention above endurance, Garfunkel's presence feels like a testament to continuity. He does not chase relevance, he inhabits it quietly, as someone who understands that certain sounds and certain sensibilities do not expire. There is something about the way he stands now, shoulders slightly inclined, eyes attentive, that suggests listening as much as singing. Listening to the room, listening to the years behind him, listening, perhaps, to the echo of earlier versions of himself. The young man who once sang with crystalline clarity is still there, but he is joined by the man who has walked through loss, reconciliation, parenthood, and long stretches of contemplation. The result is not a replacement of youth, but a layering. The voice carries those layers gently, like fine paper pressed one over another until the texture becomes richer. For many in the audience who have aged alongside him, this evolution feels personal. They have heard his songs at weddings, during long drives, in quiet kitchens after children had gone to bed. They have turned to those harmonies during seasons of uncertainty and during moments of simple joy. Now, seeing him in later life, they are not searching for the exact timbre of decades past. They are witnessing what it means for a life in music to remain upright, dignified, and present. The passage of years has also revealed a discipline beneath the delicacy. It is easy to forget that behind the ethereal tone lies rigorous devotion to craft. Breath, phrasing, diction. These are not accidents of talent, but the fruits of sustained attention. In his maturity, that discipline becomes visible in subtle ways, in the care with which he approaches a lyric, in the measured pacing of a performance, in the thoughtful selection of material. There is no rush, there is no urgency to prove. There is simply the work, honored and tended. What distinguishes this stage of his life is not nostalgia, but perspective. He carries his history without being burdened by it. The songs that once defined an era now belong to a broader tapestry, one that includes poetry, literature, and the quiet rhythms of private life. He has always been drawn to words beyond the stage, and that literary sensibility seems to have deepened over time. It lends his public appearances an air of reflection, as though each note emerges from a well-considered thought. In a world that moves quickly and often forgets its own recent past, Garfunkel stands as a reminder that artistry can mature without hardening. There is gentleness in him still, and it does not read as fragility. It reads as strength tempered by understanding. The applause that greets him now carries something more than excitement. It carries gratitude for the songs, for the steadiness, for the proof that a life devoted to beauty can continue to resonate long after the first spotlight has dimmed into softer light. Long before arenas filled and recordings traveled across continents, there was a quieter beginning shaped not by spectacle, but by friendship and shared curiosity. The story of Art Garfunkel cannot be told without acknowledging the profound artistic partnership that first carried his voice into the public ear. Yet what deserves reflection is not merely the success that followed, but the delicate chemistry that made that success possible. Harmony in its truest sense is an act of listening as much as singing. It requires restraint, trust, and an understanding that beauty often resides between two voices rather than in one alone. When he stood beside Paul Simon as half of Simon and Garfunkel, the world heard something that felt both ancient and entirely new. Their blend carried the clarity of traditional folk ballads while reflecting the unease and searching spirit of a changing generation. It was not loud. It did not demand attention through force. Instead, it invited listeners inward. The harmonies seemed to suggest that vulnerability itself could be strong, that gentleness could travel farther than bravado. In the cultural atmosphere of the 1960s, where protest and transformation defined the public mood, their music offered something more interior. Songs like The Sound of Silence and Bridge Over Troubled Water were not slogans. They were meditations set to melody. And Garfunkel's voice, soaring yet tender, became a kind of lantern within those compositions. It illuminated the emotional landscape without overwhelming it. For many, his timbre became inseparable from memories of a particular era: college campuses, earnest conversations, the quiet hope that music might steady a restless world. Yet partnership is rarely simple. Creative collaboration demands negotiation of ego and expectation, and as years passed, tensions inevitably surfaced. What stands out, looking back from the vantage point of maturity, is not the strain but the resilience. After separation came solo work, and after distance came reunion. There were seasons of silence and seasons of reconciliation. Through each shift, Garfunkel maintained an identifiable grace. He did not treat change as catastrophe. He treated it as another movement in a larger composition. His solo career revealed dimensions sometimes obscured within a duo. There was an introspective quality, a willingness to linger on lyrical nuance. He chose material carefully, often gravitating toward songs that carried poetic weight. The success of his solo recordings affirmed that the voice people cherished was not dependent on context alone. It possessed its own architecture, its own emotional authority. Beyond music, he ventured into acting, appearing in films that showcased a different facet of his sensibility. On screen, he carried the same thoughtful presence that characterized his singing. There was a certain intellectual reserve in his performances, an impression that he approached each role as carefully as he approached a melody. Even in new mediums, the through line remained evident: attentiveness, subtlety, depth. What becomes clear across these chapters of professional life is the absence of theatrical excess. He has never seemed interested in cultivating spectacle for its own sake. Instead, his trajectory reflects a measured engagement with opportunity. Success arrived early and in abundance, yet he did not allow it to distort his center. That steadiness, visible now in the later years of his life, feels earned. For those who have watched the unfolding across decades, there is something reassuring in this continuity. The young harmonizer evolved into the solo interpreter, then into the reflective elder statesman of song. Each stage built upon the previous without erasing it. The partnership that introduced him to the world remains a cherished chapter, but it does not confine him. It is one movement within a larger symphony. In honoring him today, we are not revisiting a single era. We are recognizing the breadth of a life that moved through collaboration, separation, renewal, and ongoing creation. And through every transition, the essential quality has endured: a voice that listens as deeply as it sings. There are artists whose influence can be measured in awards, chart positions, and ticket sales. And then there are those whose impact settles quietly into the habits of everyday life, shaping moments that rarely make headlines, but remain deeply personal. Art Garfunkel belongs to the latter category. His presence in American culture has often been understated, yet it has proven remarkably durable. It resides not only in public memory, but in private ritual. Consider the way certain songs emerge at significant passages of life. A wedding reception, where voices join tentatively at first, then with confidence. A long-distance phone call where someone hums a familiar line for comfort. A memorial service where a melody seems to hold the room together without strain. In such spaces, His voice has functioned less as performance and more as companion. It has stood beside people during transitions, offering steadiness without intrusion. This quiet companionship did not arise by accident. His vocal style has always carried a clarity that feels unforced. There is no aggressive display, no attempt to overpower emotion. Instead, he approaches a lyric as though it deserves respect. Each consonant is shaped, each vowel allowed to bloom. The effect is intimacy at scale. Even in vast venues, listeners often describe the sensation of being addressed individually. As decades have passed, generations have encountered his work in different ways. Some remember the original vinyl records carefully lowered onto turntables. Others first heard the songs through car radios, cassette tapes, compact discs, and eventually digital playlists assembled by grandchildren. The medium has shifted, but the emotional response remains strikingly consistent. Younger listeners frequently remark upon the purity of the tone, as though discovering a kind of musical transparency that feels rare in more heavily produced eras. What is particularly notable is how his voice has aged in tandem with his audience. Those who were young adults when his recordings first circulated are now elders themselves. Their lives have gathered experience, careers built, families raised, losses endured. When they hear him today, whether in archival performances or in current appearances, they are not merely revisiting youth, they are engaging in a conversation between past and present. The voice becomes a bridge across time, reminding them of who they were and affirming who they have become. This intergenerational dialogue is one of his most enduring contributions. Grandparents introduce grandchildren to harmonies that once framed their own courtships. Parents share lyrics that comforted them during uncertain years. In doing so, they pass along more than music. They transmit a sensibility, an appreciation for restraint, for lyrical depth, for melodies that unfold patiently rather than rush toward climax. Cultural influence often announces itself loudly, yet his has operated through subtle diffusion. It can be traced in the work of later vocalists who favor blending over bravado, in songwriters who trust quiet reflection as a legitimate artistic stance. Even when his name is not cited directly, the aesthetic he helped popularize persists. It affirms that gentleness and thoughtfulness are not liabilities in public art, they are strengths. There is also something distinctly American in the arc of his career, though it resists stereotype. His music reflects urban landscapes and rural highways, intellectual curiosity, and emotional directness. It speaks to both solitude and community. That breadth has allowed it to travel across regions and social boundaries with unusual ease. In observing this long-standing cultural presence, one recognizes that influence need not be dramatic to be profound. It can move like groundwater, nourishing roots unseen. The applause he receives today carries layers of recognition accumulated over decades. It is not solely for memorable performances. It is for the steady companionship his artistry has provided, woven into the fabric of countless, ordinary, yet irreplaceable lives. Beyond the stage lights and studio sessions, there has always been a quieter dimension to Art Garfunkel that does not compete for attention, yet reveals much about the architecture of his character. It is found in his devotion to reading, in long solitary walks, in the deliberate cultivation of an inner life that runs parallel to public recognition. For an artist so closely associated with harmony, it is fitting that his private rhythms have remained measured and contemplative. Books have accompanied him across decades, as faithfully as any instrument. He has spoken often of reading as sustenance rather than pastime, a discipline as essential as vocal practice. Literature offers him not applause, but perspective. In the company of poets and novelists, he has found a language expansive enough to hold doubt, wonder, and reflection. That literary appetite has quietly shaped his musical interpretation. When he approaches a lyric, one senses the mind of a reader behind the voice, someone attentive to nuance, to cadence, to the weight a single word can carry. Walking, too, has been central to his sense of self. There is something symbolic in the image of him, moving steadily along open roads step after step without urgency. Walking is both solitary and connective. It places a person within landscape, while allowing space for thought. Over the years, he has undertaken long journeys on foot, not as spectacle, but as personal pilgrimage. The rhythm of walking mirrors the rhythm of breathing, and breathing lies at the heart of singing. Perhaps it is no coincidence that his phrasing often feels unhurried, grounded in a bodily awareness, cultivated far from microphones. Family life has provided another anchor. While public narratives often dwell on professional milestones, the quieter commitments of marriage and fatherhood reveal a different scale of achievement. To nurture relationships over time requires patience distinct from artistic ambition. It demands presence rather than projection. In interviews and appearances, there is a discernible warmth when he speaks of those closest to him, a reminder that the man behind the voice measures success not only in recordings, but in shared dinners, in conversations at the end of long days, in the ordinary continuity of home. There have been challenges as well, including periods when his voice faltered and required rest. For a singer whose identity is so intertwined with sound, such moments could easily have prompted despair. Instead, they became lessons in humility and resilience. Recovery was neither instantaneous nor guaranteed, yet he approached it with characteristic steadiness. The process underscored an important truth. Artistry is not merely the act of performance, but the willingness to protect and rebuild the instrument when necessary. In tending to his voice, he demonstrated a respect for craft that extends beyond applause. Observers sometimes describe him as reserved, even introspective. That reserve should not be mistaken for distance. Rather, it reflects a careful stewardship of self. In an industry often fueled by constant visibility, he has chosen selective presence. Appearances are thoughtful, not impulsive. Statements are measured, not reactive. This deliberateness has preserved a sense of authenticity that audiences recognize instinctively. What emerges from these personal contours is a portrait of balance. Public acclaim did not eclipse private curiosity. Professional partnership did not eliminate individual identity. Success did not dissolve discipline. The man who sings with luminous clarity is the same man who turns pages late into the night, who walks mile after mile in quiet reflection, who values the small ceremonies of family life. In honoring him, it is important to acknowledge this interior landscape. It explains the texture of the voice, the restraint in performance, the enduring calm. The songs may travel widely, but they originate from a life deliberately lived. And that deliberateness, patient, reflective, steadfast, has become one of his most eloquent contributions. Recognition, when it arrives after many decades, carries a different weight than early applause. It is less about surprise and more about confirmation. In the case of Art Garfunkel, the recognition that surrounds him today feels like a collective acknowledgement of endurance, of a life that has remained aligned with its original sensibilities while allowing them to mature naturally. There is something profoundly reassuring in witnessing that alignment sustained across time. His journey has unfolded alongside vast changes in the music industry, in technology, and in public taste. Vinyl gave way to streaming. Intimate concert halls expanded into stadiums, and then, in some ways, returned to smaller, more reflective venues. Through each shift, he maintained a consistent relationship to song itself. Trends have come and gone, yet his approach has remained anchored in melody and meaning. That constancy offers a quiet lesson. Relevance need not depend on reinvention if the foundation is sound. There is also a dignity in the way he occupies the present. He does not attempt to replicate the precise conditions of youth, nor does he distance himself from them. Instead, he stands within the continuum of his own history. When he sings familiar repertoire now, there is an added layer of reflection. The lyrics resonate differently when filtered through decades of lived experience. Lines that once carried youthful yearning now suggest seasoned understanding. The transformation is subtle but unmistakable. For those who have followed him for half a century or more, this evolution feels almost intimate. They have seen photographs from earlier eras, heard interviews from various stages of life, and perhaps attended concerts separated by many years. In observing him today, they are not searching for a return to the past. They are witnessing the integration of that past into a coherent present. It is a rare privilege to observe such continuity. Gratitude often emerges naturally in these moments of reflection, not the loud gratitude of spectacle, but the quieter acknowledgement that certain voices accompany a lifetime. His songs have been present at thresholds, graduations, departures, reconciliations, anniversaries. They have provided language when ordinary speech felt insufficient. That sustained companionship fosters a form of respect that extends beyond fandom. It becomes a kind of shared history. Within the broader cultural landscape, his name evokes an era, yet he has never been confined to it. Younger musicians continue to reference the clarity and emotional restraint that characterized his work. Audiences encountering him for the first time often remark on the purity of tone and the absence of artifice. In a time frequently marked by excess, such simplicity feels almost radical. It reminds listeners that a single, well-shaped line can carry more power than elaborate display. As he stands now in the fullness of later life, there is a calm authority in his bearing. It is not the authority of dominance, but of coherence. The elements that defined him early on, discipline, attentiveness, intellectual curiosity, remain visible. They have not been eroded by time, they have been clarified by it. That clarity offers a kind of reassurance to those who value constancy over spectacle. To pause and recognize him in this way is not to freeze him in memory, but to honor the ongoing nature of his presence. The story continues in concerts still performed, in recordings still discovered, in conversations still sparked by familiar harmonies. The applause that greets him today is layered with decades of listening, decades of shared experience, and so the recognition feels fitting, even inevitable. A life devoted to measured beauty, to thoughtful collaboration, to quiet endurance, stands before us still active, still engaged. In that steady presence there is comfort, not because it returns us to who we once were, but because it affirms that artistry, when rooted in sincerity, can accompany us faithfully across the long and varied landscape of time. If you would like a new tribute to another living artist, simply tell me the name.